So 2023 has come to an end. We've wrapped up the final year of the 14 playoff format. And by the time college football starts up again next fall, a whole lot will have changed. Texas and OU will be in the SEC. USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon will be in the Big Ten. Cal, Stanford, and SMU will be in the teetering ACC. And meanwhile, the Big 12 continues to double down on its best of the rest strategy. And the mighty Conference of Champions is no more. Well, I guess technically, but let's be real. Point is, college football is about as stable as an active volcano right now, and it still feels like we haven't seen the big eruption yet. So if all of this conference realignment and playoff restructuring isn't the final straw, what is? Well, many suggest it's the College Football Super League. Basically, the big idea is that college football has grown to the point where it really needs to separate itself from the NCAA entirely and govern itself and sustain itself based on the funds from the new college football playoff. But naturally, when you start to go down that road, other questions start to form. Mostly, who makes it into this so-called Super League? What is the criteria for each team? And how many teams are going to be included? Well, this video isn't for a deep dive into the full details of what this could look like. I just wanted to make a quick video as to who I think could be included in this new College Football Super League. So in this structure, we're going to have 40 teams and 4 divisions, one in the West, one in the Midwest, one in the Northeast, and one in the Southeast. Now, there are going to be some restraints geographically, so obviously some parts of the country are going to be very crowded with talent, meanwhile others may get a pass. So feel free to let me know in the comments which teams you would put into the Super League, and let's get right into the list. Okay, so here we are in Tier Maker. I decided to make it in here just because I didn't really want to make a whole map and map out everything. I just felt like this would be easier and work just fine. But we have the West Division, the Midwest Division, the Northeast, and the Southeast. And then I left a column in there for the snubs. I'm going to put one snub from each division into that snubs list. That's kind of on the cusp, very well be included above other teams that I put in there. But let's get right into it in the West. The West, I'm going to put in to start out USC. And I'm not basing this list solely on one criteria, whether it be brand recognition, TV rating, revenue. I'm kind of taking most of that into account. And if there were a theoretical Super League, who would be included? So when I think of the West, USC is definitely the top team I think of. And so I'm going to put them in number 1. And this isn't necessarily in order of best team, but this is the first team that kind of pops into my head when I think of that region. And again, I do want to separate it regionally for a reason, trying to keep as many rivalries going as we can and keep as much tradition as possible. I think is important. Not all that can be done with this major restructuring of college football and separating from the NCAA, but do our best to keep the sport we know and love somewhat resembling what it was back in the day. So moving on to the Midwest, let's go Texas. I think they're by far the biggest brand out there right now. Northeast Michigan, the national champion, very much deserve to be in this Super League. Next up, Alabama. First really 2 or 3 in each division are pretty much no-brainers. Next up, we got Oregon with their massive spending in NIL, partnering with Nike, and a lot of performance on the field. They've done more than enough to be considered as one of the top dogs in college football. Next up, we have OU, keeping that one of the best rivalries in sports between Texas and Oklahoma, and they're just one of the biggest brands out there, so very much deserving. Next up, we got Ohio State for obvious reasons. In the Southeast, Georgia for obvious reasons. Back out to the West, let's go Washington. Pretty solid. There's a reason why the Big Ten wanted to add those 2 brands out there. The Midwest, let's go Texas A&M. Northeast, let's go Notre Dame. Any kind of form of elite conference in college football, Notre Dame is going to be included in that. Next up in the Southeast, let's go Florida. This could be debatable to other teams, but pretty massive brand. I think they're going to be included as far as the top dogs are concerned. Back out west, could be a little bit of recency bias, but they have a history of success. Colorado, in the Midwest Division. Iowa, Northeast Division, let's go Wisconsin. Go Auburn. West Division, back in the West, let's go ASU maybe, or no, let's go Utah. To a lesser extent than Oregon has definitely staked their claim recently in college football. Kyle Whittingham has been so dominant for them these past couple decades and then they had Urban Meyer before that. They've had a really good stretch, and if you want to make your name known in college football, you have to have continued success over multiple decades. And I think Utah's done that to a certain extent. So I think they deserve a spot here. Back to the Midwest. Let's go Nebraska. And this is a completely brand reason. Back in the 90s and maybe early 2000s were completely dominant and have been a completely different team in recent years, but still massive brand, massive following. Northeast, let's go Michigan State. Southeast, let's go Tennessee. Back out west, this is where things get a little tricky, or you can make arguments either way, but let's go Arizona. And then right back to the Midwest, Oklahoma State. Yeah. Go Virginia Tech. Let's go Ole Miss. West Division. Let's just go ASU to keep that rivalry going. Let's go Missouri. I know they're in the Southeast division or conference right now, but regionally speaking, I think they meet the criteria out in the Midwest. Northeast, yeah, I left Penn State off, and I don't necessarily agree with them in this order. But they're in there for sure. Southeast, let's go Florida State for sure. So how many do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3 more spots left for each division. So UCLA, I think there's a reason why the Big Ten took UCLA. I think a little bit riding off the coattails of USC, but still big enough to be included in this and enough success in the past. Midwest Division, this is getting hard, man. There's going to be teams left off. There's going to be debate here. Let's go TCU. I think they've done enough making the championship and always having a solid team, really. This is where it starts to get really debatable. I'm going to put Purdue. I don't have a good reason why. I'm just putting Purdue. That's it. I'm just going to leave it at that. Clemson, I think, has done enough to be in here. 2 more spots left in each division. Back out west, I'm just going to go BYU. Midwest Division, Arkansas, I like that one. Northeast, let's go Minnesota. I think they've had enough tradition and rivalry with Wisconsin and other teams out there. Again, this is not necessarily in terms of who I think is most deserving, but LSU for sure is going to be included in here. An absolute no-brainer. They may even be in this kind of area. These 3 teams in the SEC have been carrying them the past couple decades. So, okay, last spot in each division. Out west, Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, and Cal, pretty much. I'm just going to put Oregon State. I don't know how much Cal and Stanford are willing to take it to this next step that college football is going. But for now, we'll just put Oregon State in. In the Midwest, Baylor, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Kansas State. Let's go with Kansas State. I think they're a little, I don't know, that's super debatable. Let's just leave it at that for now. Northeast Division. Who's been left out here? I'm going to put UNC in the Northeast Division. I think they could go either way, but I don't want to leave UNC out regardless. I think they're definitely included in this list. And then last spot in the Southeast. For me, it's between Miami and Mississippi State. I'm going to go Miami just for the brand recognition. And I could be totally wrong. Like I said, this really doesn't have a whole lot of research behind it as far as revenue for each school and all this stuff. It's just kind of my opinion. And then let's just go with the 1 snub from each division. I think the snub from the West would be Stanford. Midwest, I think you're looking at Texas Tech. Northeast, I think you're looking at, if North Carolina's in there, let's just put Duke in there. And then as far as the Southeast snub, let's go Mississippi State. All right, so that's the list. Again, let me know down below in the comments what you guys think. Feel free to comment your own list down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.